If I had to guess, I'd say that I've created probably 500 foot of natural growing plants all around the edge of my property. Try and let y'all see how much I've done. But it wasn't always like this. In fact, my yard was more like just a field of grass, because there once existed a pine forest here that was cut down for the timber. Just 2 years ago, I saw this amazing flock of birds. At that point, I wasn't much of a birder and didn't know what I was seeing. These were the migrating American robins. Roughly another year later, I saw my spark bird, the rose-headed spoonbill. It was at that point I drawed an interest into birds. That interest in birds allowed me to look a little deeper into the American robins, and I found out one of their food sources is blackberries, something I had a lot of in my field, if I just let them grow. Also, after reading about the demise of the monarch butterfly, something that should have been one of the most prolific butterflies, I realized that it wasn't just a demise in the monarch, it was a demise in all of our pollinators, and there was something to be said about this. Realizing that butterflies were just one example of our pollinators, many insects and even this beautiful hummingbird are all pollinators. And realizing that a biodiverse ecosystem of many different plants will help sustain an ecosystem full of many different animals. Animals of all sorts, starting in the soil with the microorganisms that help sustain the plants themselves. The first step to a healthy ecosystem is to just kind of let it be, because the foliage and plants that grow on the surface of the soil are what protects the microorganisms that live within the soil. You've probably heard it many times. The hardest part is the first part. And trying to turn a desert-like grassy field into a forest just takes time and the right steps to be put in place. So here I was basically building it from the ground up. I realized that the monarch butterfly's host plant, the milkweed, is one of the perfect starting plants because they do really well in dry, non-nutritious, rough soil. I quickly propagated as much as I could afford to. I bought several hundred seeds online and I started growing them in pots. But the winter always seemed to set me back to square one. The soil here wasn't very fertile. In fact, there was very little organic matter at all. So I had several truckloads of mulch delivered to help add organic compost to the soil. But that also slows the process down because the mulch, as it decomposes, it robs the soil of nitrogen, which is essential for plants to grow. It wasn't until year 3 that mulch was actually viable for planting in. The first 3 years of my journey were tough. I was almost forced to leave the back as a basic grassy desert because the soil wasn't ready yet. However, I was lucky enough to have a very small wooded section in the front of my property. It was in this area I spent most of my time planting the plants that I had received through different jobs I was doing. It's safe to say I've planted over 1,000 different plants and hundreds of different species up there, but I'm strictly focusing on this area. And 3 years later, the mulch broke down into a more organic, nutritious soil that I could start dispersing around my yard. In fact, I could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Well, not literally, but metaphorically, because I love birds. I could take the mulch and the organic broken down material and disperse it around the perimeter of my yard, creating a better soil for plants and trees to grow in, as well as getting ready for prep to use the pond liner I received for free and create my pond. I know, it looks a little rough at first. I never added any fish, but naturally, amphibians showed up and started colonizing this little oasis, as well as a plethora of other insect species. And my dogs really love this thing.
Good girl, Odie! Oh, she got the ball.
But this video really is about the pollinators and the journey and the progress we've made to help them out as much as we possibly can. And I cannot identify all of these plants, but I can see lots of beautiful flowers that could become potential food sources for various different insects. Like that pretty cool red flower. There's a lot of those in here. These are hitchhikers, and I've seen many different species that all pollinate hitchhiker weeds. There's that unusual one there. And if you just look closely, you'll see, even though at first appearance you may not see a pollinator, they're there. You just have to look really hard sometimes. It's truly amazing the amount of insects that all have made their way into this little natural area. Those are some love bugs. So if we just peek around the side, and that's another one of those beautiful unmown and maintained areas. I have several of those, and it's odd because each spot has different plants. Different areas in the yard have different plants. There's my dog. Now I just saw a little brown bird fly out of here. It's probably a ground nesting sparrow or something of that effect. That has, and insects are jumping now, that has found this to be a suitable site for, you know, a nest. Look at the grasshopper. Look at the grasshoppers, they're everywhere. And they're thriving in here because they don't have to worry about predators easily spotting them, or them just being mowed and chopped up in a lawnmower, or, you know, a lack of food. There's plenty here for everything to grow and to thrive. Some more of those love bugs, which in Florida are a very prolific insect. Trying to find some pollinators, but it's a very gloomy time of day, so not seeing as much as I'd like to see. But if you come out here on a day where it's sunny, the flowers are all opened up, we just got a good rain, I bet tomorrow would be a great day to come look for pollinators. But just so many things that have all just kind of naturally grown. I mean, I don't even know what these are, but I'm just gonna let them be, because they probably have their purpose here in the ecosystem. Here, this was partly introduced mulch, so there's a lot of different stuff that's not in this specific area, but still mostly just native stuff. But over here, this was some blackberries that I didn't mow, because blackberries are essential food source for several different species of birds and tortoises and lots of other insects that thrive on them, lots of beetles. So you may notice like all these are all blackberries, they're all in there, and they're thorny little bitters. But right over here, something totally different. This is like a grassy area, kind of like a grassland that just kind of naturally formed right here. And something odd right there. I don't know what that is, a leaf or something? Never seen this before. Yeah, it's a leaf. Okay, I was like, whoa, what is that black thing? A leaf. But yeah, just some really beautiful kind of bluish colored grass that came in naturally, and I have a huge area of this grassy stuff that I am trying to promote, because this is a native grass. It just grew here. And then of course we do maintain parts of the yard to allow access, but if you just look around, you'll see native species are everywhere in this yard. That's a gopher tortoise, just grows holes everywhere. He grows them. No, he digs them. But none of these trees, that little forest, or these trees were even here when we first moved in. They're all offshoots of that bigger one right there. And that bigger one was probably only twice as big as this one when we moved in. But because this plant spreads by asexual reproduction, shoots off runners, the roots will travel pretty far. And like, that's one, that's one, that's one, and then it just took off this whole area with some dirt that we brought in at one point that's now gone, but just the roots just thrived. I'm the host of this channel. We're out here just trying to live on the homestead, doing modifications and improvements to the land to try to further benefit. I'm gonna cut that one. You don't gotta cut it. Go ahead and cut it. And shot off sprouts off. And that one, and this one, and those, and there's some behind the grass over there. All from just probably the roots off this one tree. And this tree is a persimmons tree. And persimmons is another native fruit tree that is excellent food source. The deer love it. But this one's kind of young, and I have not yet seen the first persimmons on it. It's not like the big persimmons that get huge and orange, the size of apples that look like oranges. It's a small fruit that's not really very tasty until it falls. And when it's on the ground, it's ripe. If you eat it anytime sooner, then you're probably gonna get a bitter fruit. Very astringent, dries your mouth out. A few months ago, I uploaded a video called Restoring Biodiversity in the Outdoors. And I talked about a few things we could do to help preserve and maintain our ecosystem. And one of those things was to leave some areas of your yard unmown and unmaintained. If you do that, sometimes you create a little meadow. And in that area that's unmaintained, dormant seeds grow out of the ground. And in this one little patch right here, there's probably over 100 different species of plants They're all contributing to the biodiversity in this area. Now, I didn't know what was going to sprout up here, but I was pleasantly surprised to find Morris coneflowers popping up that I'd never seen in my yard before, all because for the first time I was willing to leave this area unmown and unmaintained. And since I've left this area unmown and unmaintained, I've seen bees and frogs and insects and 500 different grasshoppers at once, all jumping, but certainly over 100 different species of insects. And those insects not only pollinate these flowers to help them become prolific themselves, but also are a food source for other animals to thrive on. So the importance of these unmown and unmaintained areas cannot be understated. But as we get into the later parts of the season, you'll see other plants like these beautiful pink flowers become very prolific as well. If you look, there's more than just pollinators. You've got like a beautiful grasshopper just creeping along in there, and there's another one right over there. Here's another one. They're everywhere. You just got to take a second and actually look. Let me flip the camera so I can see the focus on this. Yeah, if you just look, there's tons of these grasshoppers, and these grasshoppers are a crucial food source for many other animals. Lots of birds depend on these grasshoppers. Talked about recently, creating a small pond, and how that can also help the food web. Now this pond is it's small compared to some ponds, but for my other pond, it's pretty large. And because I put this pond here, disregard all of my dog's balls, he actually loves to swim. He follows me everywhere I go. He wants me to throw the ball. So we'll do that. You ready, Kong? Let's see him go. He's fast. So it's also is an area where I have created my nursery to grow other cool plants that could also help bring in lots of pollinators. Some of them are uncommon and kind of rare plants, but a lot of ones are very important, like 4 different species of milkweed all growing here, and I have milkweed planted all around my property. So I'm just kind of cultivating it here. But other things that could create food sources for humans, citrus, ice cream bean, more citrus. These are all jackfruits, the ones that haven't propagated. Those are a monkey apple, aloe for healing. I even got a few redwoods that I didn't plant because they were on there kind of not doing so well, which redwoods aren't native here, but I'd love to just grow one here because it could become some kind of a backup plan if we ever need to have redwoods that weren't in the area where redwoods naturally grow. It's porterweed, all that. Coleus, Japanese plums, a type of fan palm. And then some of the prehistoric plants like these reeds or horsetail plants. And then a lot of native vegetation, some of it non-native, but actually invasive, but isolated here so I can easily maintain that. Water hyacinth. And then other natural vegetation back there. It allows insects a wide variety of plants and food sources, which is crucial to maintaining and sustaining a healthy ecosystem. I just kind of thought that y'all would appreciate a follow-up video on some of the things I'm doing on my own property to restore and maintain the habitats and ecosystems that we all depend on so much. So if you like this kind of video, I'd really appreciate your like button. So thank you very much for watching this video, and please do subscribe and follow me for more great content. I'm trying to be more consistent for y'all because the importance is there. If you would, we'll see you next time in the great outdoors. Peace.